Good evening, one and all, or three and all, I guess. Steve, it's chilly in Vancouver in winter? No way. Oh, what a day. North Dakota. Who's in North Dakota? ND cannon shooter. I have a friend in North Dakota. Very cold there. Good evening, red-eyed loon. How's everybody doing in the run-up to the holidays? It's been a little bit crazy here. You don't get much snow though, do you, Steve? Am I planning a video on 3D technique? It depends what you mean, Gilles. Am I planning a video on 3D modeling? I know we've chatted about some of that tech, photogrammetry and things like that. Or are you talking about stereo 3D simulation using Xerine Stacker? The answer to the second one is definitely yes. I've just been building a portfolio of three-dimensional image pairs. If you're talking about the former, I don't know. I don't know enough about it at this point to be able to probably speak on it very meaningfully. I mean, the area I've been working in is very minute. I don't know. I'll think about it. Let me know specifically what you're interested in, and I'll let you know. Hey Blair, greetings from the past to you too, sir. I need to get a spectacle cleaning pad out the drawer because I can't even read these thingamajigs. Some of you may have noticed that the Steve Axford interview appeared on YouTube about 3 minutes ago. That is part one of what is now a two-part video, a two-part series. The reason is I had normally if I do an interview and I get a couple of hours of footage, that translates usually into 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes of video. Well, after an hour and 8 minutes or 18 minutes of footage was processed, I had 54 minutes of interview because there wasn't anything in there that I wanted to take out. So I didn't, and it means that the video is going to be ridiculously long. So what I did was I split it into two, and I released the first part this evening. Now I accidentally, this is not good, but I accidentally released it to not to Patreon first, which was an oversight. I know I'm supposed to do that. Excuse me. I have got the terrible sinusitis issue going on. It's cold here for a change. Anyway, I'm going to get the Patreon version, the ad-free version of the interview up this evening, of the first part of it. And there was a little problem with the footage from the second part, so I hope to have that all sorted out and have that done by the weekend. I'm going to be gone for a couple of days to do the Photoshop thing. And that's going to take me out of the loop for a little while as far as editing goes. But anyway, that's where we are. Let me see. I didn't answer your question, Gilles, I know, but get in touch with me and let me know. All right. Noel, welcome from Ireland. Whereabouts in Ireland? Let me guess. Cork. Dublin. Yeah, Dublin. There's more people in Dublin. Good guess. Walter. No, Walter. that I would never impose a limit on how much people want to chat. Does it? I mean, does it affect your ability to chat, or does it affect? Does it get in the way of something? I don't think so. No, I'm happy. I'm delighted that you guys chat. Now, if there's fighting in the ranks, I'll step in, like I almost did last week. But yeah. I am extremely exhausted. It took 30 hours of work to get that first half of the interview out, just because it was in fragments, and putting it together was exhausting. And so I'm a couple of nights without a good night's sleep. Anyway, I hear your question, Walter, and certainly if there's a specific issue, if it's spoiling the event for anybody, then yeah, you need to let me know, and I can figure it out from there. Hey Jamie, how are you? Northwest Ohio. Gosh, I barely know where Ohio is, but Northwest would be in the top left-hand corner. Don't know what's there, but welcome anyway. Let me see. Hey, Fred. What's going on? Toluca, hey, how are you? Good to have you with us. Jim, welcome home to Alabama. Are we supposed to be getting some bad weather, Jim? That's a question I have for you. I threw my weather radio away because it was forever lying to me. But somebody told me today, somebody from California told me today that we were supposed to have bad weather here. And yeah, so let me know, Jim, I'm counting on you. Hey, Bill, I thought you weren't going to be here, or was that last week or next week? Glad you made it. Okay. Oh yeah, you don't see a lot of questions due to the volume of comments. Walter, well, you're right, but people put a big question in front of their question, so I see it. I'm scanning for questions all the time. Like I just saw that Bill just asked a question. Oh, it's a question about chatter. He said, I think if there's too much chatter, it seems to get lost on the questions. Ooh. Yeah, I'm not bothered by it, guys. I'm really not. I mean, it's like if anybody asks me a question, I'll stop yammering and I'll answer the question, and I'll do it as well as I can, regardless of how many comments there are. But yeah, if you want to connect with people out there in macro world, I mean, that's part of what this is about, community. So yeah, I don't care about who chats. I mean, presumably, if I say something that's important, you'll listen. And yeah, if you don't, then you know there's no point being here anyway. So I don't mind about that. Anyway, I've got some stuff I wanted to talk to you about while I was here. I almost did a live stream this afternoon, and I would have done, but the editing was just too intense. It was there was too much going on. If I'd had another thing to pay attention to, I wouldn't have got it done. I want to talk very briefly about the Photoshop tutorial session live stream thing with Bud Parrott that's coming up this Thursday. That is providing I can get there tomorrow or the next day. That's the plan anyway, is me heading up to Georgia. But the event is going to be a 2-hour long live stream, and we're going to pretty much follow your lead. We'll determine whether or not this is something we're ever going to do again based on whether or not anybody shows up and whether or not it's useful to you, because you'll leave feedback, I hope. We have some viewer photographs. Amy has been kind and sent in a couple of field macro shots, which are great, and needed a little bit of work, and we've looked at those. And then, oh, now I'm going to forget the gentleman's name who sent in the lovely jumping spider. We both worked on that. That's a difficult subject. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out easy, and we'll probably talk some about the various tools that we use. We'll walk you through Photoshop. We'll look at some of the basic stuff that I do all the time, just to kind of get you acquainted. We're going to assume that most of you or many of you are newcomers to photo editing and macro. And then we'll work our way up towards the more challenging cases, and we'll always finish up the end of the session with a toughie. And we've got a toughie. But if you have something you want us to see, you want us to edit, you need to email it to me, and you need to put Photoshop, yeah, that'll do it, Photoshop in the subject line. If you do that, I'll know to search for it tonight. But you have to do it tonight, because Bud and I both have to look at the pictures and decide what we're going to do. So yeah, if you've got a picture that you've been trying to edit and you just can't get it the way you want it, send it to us. Send us the TIFF, or send us the raw image. Don't send a JPEG. We can't do much with JPEGs. You know why, right? It's compressed. A JPEG doesn't allow you to non-destructively edit it the way that we can with a RAW or a TIFF. So send it in that format and make it as tough as you want. Make it something you threw away if you want. Anything that will allow us to try different things. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. And 2 hours, so that's plenty of time. Come with questions too. It's not just an audience thing, it's very much an audience participation event. So if your problem is you don't understand how a mask works, then come and ask that right at the beginning, and we'll turn our discussion to talking about masks and different selection methods and all kinds of stuff, how to use layers, and it's all for you. I mean, this is not for butter, and it's certainly not because I wanted driving practice. This is definitely a thing that we wanted to do for you. So come and ask your questions. All right. I wanted to tell you about something that happened this weekend. It was weird. I got an email, which I happened to see just by pure happenstance. An email from our friend. Hang on a sec. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this, so let me just double check that I can. There's no point me telling the story if I can't show you the thing. Okay, I think I can. So, Light Glass Optics sent me an email about a gadget that he had seen at on eBay, and he sent me a picture of it, or sent me a link to it. And I looked at this thing, and I'm going to share it with you right now here, share the screen with you so you can see what it is I'm talking about. And this is it. This is the thingamajig. And I thought, well, that's a clever idea, to put a Raynox and some tubes and some infinity space and some threads of the right size, all in the right place, to have a one-stop shop, one-piece Mitutoyo adapter. That could be very useful for the beginner. So I immediately started looking at it and reading about the details of it, which are all down here. And he's made it with carbon fiber filled polycarbonate, so it's going to be very tough, and hold the threads will hold and that type of thing. But it's got some problems, or got not problems. It's got some issues that I needed to get answered, because when I saw it, I thought, I'll share this with my audience. Well, it turns out the short version of the story is when I got in touch with the shop, or the man, to talk to him about the questions, it turned out that the person was a young chap who's actually one of the audience. He's one of you, one of us. So I was thrilled to bits that somebody had taken the initiative to do this. He's an engineering student, and we corresponded back and forth, and I let him know my concerns. The fact that it has a reversed Raynox in it, and that's good, but the distance from the sensor to the Raynox is actually not where it's focused at infinity. It's a little shorter than that. So I asked about that, and I asked about the non-uniform shape of the tube system, and how that could be mounted to a rail. And he got back to me. He's already addressing all of these things, and he's building a collar for it that will allow it to mount on the rail, and spacers so that it can use a longer infinity space. That was one of my questions. This has a very short infinity space, which some people like, but I don't. So I asked about that. But anyway, I thought, well, good for you, Tristan. His name is Tristan. And he went to a lot of trouble to do this, and he's put a lot of work into it. Maybe when he's sold a few hundred of these, I'll get him to send me one, and we can try it out and test it. But I just thought that you might want to see it, and put it in your head as a possible thing to put on your Christmas list. One thing I didn't ask him was, I should have asked him, how many of these things do you have in inventory? Because before I mention it to 50 of my closest friends at a live stream, the last time I did that, a whole bunch of Mitutoyo 5X objectives disappeared off the shelves. So, okay, now would be a good time to insert ads, is what the thing just popped up on my screen to say. Am I supposed to do that? I didn't know I was supposed to insert ads. I thought that was something the computer did, but I'm not gonna do anything with it until I learn about that. All right, hey Phil, from Central Coast of California, or Canada, or China. Where is CA? It's Canada. No, Canada doesn't have a central coast. It has central snow. Hey Laura, glad you made it. Good evening, Bud. I'm going backwards just to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, let me see. Wexford, yes, you make a nice cream ale there, I believe. I think that's what comes from Wexford. Don't know that for sure. Yes, Fred. Editing does take a lot out of you. It makes your face grow hair, but that's about it. That's about it. All right, let me see. Bruce, welcome. I'm hoping that you got my email, Bruce. I write so few of them now that when I do, I hope it gets home. Hey, Michelle. What power outage? We have one. Oh, you had a camera club that was powered out. Yeah, it's getting to be that time of year. The hours goes all wonky too. Alberta. That just sounds too cold to even think about, so I won't think about it anymore. What are you guys doing for Christmas? Patreon folks, I know that some of you are on. I discovered that I was wrong about Christmas Eve. I was looking at January last week when we were talking about Christmas, and I had it on a Wednesday, I think. That was a rookie mistake. I just should have looked at the word January on there. But no, Christmas is in December this year, on the 25th. So Christmas Eve, which is this year again, is the day before Christmas, by coincidence. is on a Saturday, Sunday. Oh dear, Friday. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But the point is this: no, it's a Saturday. The Patreon get together, the private chat thing where we spend a couple of hours talking about photography and helping you out with your problems and what have you. That's going to happen on Christmas Eve. I made a commitment when I started this that I was going to do it every other Saturday for people who don't have anything else to do, and that doesn't matter whether or not it's Christmas Eve. So I'll be here on Christmas Eve. It's a Southern Hemisphere weekend, so it'll be early in the morning. No, it won't. Sorry, it's Northern Hemisphere. It'll be in the afternoon, 2 o'clock. I'll let everybody know. If you're not a member of Patreon and you enjoy coming to things like this, but you would like to be able to actually shout back at me and be heard, then join Patreon. That's what they do. They line up to shout at me. So yeah, you can get that for mere pennies a minute. It's like $10 a month, and you pay my salary, and yeah, and that's all there is to it. It's nothing fancy. All right, jibber jabber. Who's jibber jabbering? I am. Yes. Who jibber jabbers you to sleep, Karen? Karen, I remember your name. I can't remember where from. I think that you sent in a photograph to the pandemic photo competition. Was that you? I'm not good with names. Anyway, I'd forgotten all about the pandemic competition till I was cleaning out Lightroom today, and cleaning out one corner of Lightroom, and I came across the photographs again. I had forgotten how good your photographs were. They were just fantastic. Anyway, where was I? Let's see, there's a question. Noel has a question. Very new to macro, looking for options or opinions in the Raynox DCR 150 combination with the Canon 100 f2.8 macro lens. Well, okay, now that's an interesting question. The use of a diopter with a macro lens is kind of it's not the best way to use a diopter. Diopters are made to use usually with longer focal length normal lenses. It turns them into kind of a pseudo macro lens. Macro lenses, the way they're constructed, it doesn't give you a whole lot of advantage putting a magnifying glass in front of it. It's already doing all of the heavy lifting for you. Now, where the DCR 150 becomes invaluable and one of the most important pieces of macro equipment you'll own is when you get into using microscope objectives, and you have an infinity corrected microscope objective and you need a tube lens or a relay lens to focus the image on your sensor. And that is an altogether different matter. When you're using it that way, you're using it as basically part of a microscope. It is a good close-up lens, but it's a very small close-up lens. Let me go grab it. I keep my lenses fairly handy, and you know what? I picked up the one box that it's not in. Well, you can tell from the adapter that it is a fairly small diopter, especially when you compare it to, say, the Nisi diopter, which is considerably larger. Now, I've used both as diopters, and I found the Raynox was limiting, because I would normally want to use it on a longer lens, on a 200mm lens, for example, and this is going to vignette, whereas the Nisi has a much larger lens and it won't. So, I mean, honestly, you've got a one-to-one macro lens there, a good one. Why would you want to use a diopter with it? The main reason to use a diopter would be a less expensive way to get to a macro lens. You'd use a longer normal lens, or a longer non-macro lens, and it would get you close to what you might be able to get with a macro lens. You've got a fantastic macro lens. So all it's going to do is get you a little bit closer, but it's going to do so at the cost of image quality, a little bit of image quality. I also don't like putting extension tubes or what do you call them that you put on telephoto lenses? I don't use them either. Anything that gets between you and the macro lens is problematic. Now the diopters, the Raynox is a good one, but I think you may have been led a little bit astray. If you want to increase the magnification, you'd be better off adding extension, especially at 100 millimeters. Good question though. Did you already buy this lens? You already have the DCR 150? If you did, let me try a few things with my 90 millimeter lens and see what kind of coverage I get on a full frame sensor, and I'll get back to you. I'll do that. Are you over on Discord? If you're not over on Discord, or if you're using a different name over on Discord, let me know in the chat so I can find you. And anybody else who's used a DCR 150 with this particular macro lens, please chime in and help Noel. Noel, there will be a Discord invitation in the program description, okay, in the video description down below. And if for any reason I forget to put it in there, go to the video I just released, the interview with Mr. Axford, and there is one there because I checked it. All right, so where were we? Question from Canman, who's up in Alberta, I believe. Zerine stacker, personal or prosumer edition, which is the best to buy? Well, the prosumer edition is the one you want. That is the one that has all of the features that the professional edition has. In fact, it is identical to the professional edition. You don't get the retouching brushes, and there's some other functionality that you don't get with the personal edition. Really, the only one that I would recommend, and when I talk about Zerine and I recommend Zerine, it's always talking about the prosumer version. The only difference between the prosumer and the professional version is if you're making money off your photography, then Mr. Littlefield asks that you pay a premium for the fact that you're making money off the stacker. And that sounds pretty reasonable to me. If I ever sell a photograph, I'm in trouble because I use a lot of Zerine. But anyway, that's the difference. Is get the trial version, because that's got everything, I believe. That's the full Monty, and if you like that, if that works, then just get it. There's not much difference in the price, and it's cheaper than Helicon. Better than Helicon too. Hi, Slavek from Poland, eh? I bet it's snowing there too. It's snowing everywhere. Yeah, Blair. Well, I'm anticipating. Blair's a little stunned that we're going to be going Photoshop for 2 hours. Well, there are two of us for one thing, and there are 2 hours that you can drift in and drift out. I mean, nobody expects you to come and sit through 2 hours of Bud and I doing Photoshop. But especially if you have a question, I would urge you to come on in, ask your question. We'll get to them as quick as possible. I'll probably do manage the flow of questions, and I'll lead Bud with Photoshop because he knows how to use it. And yet, yeah, we'll get your questions answered, and we'll do demonstrations and all that kind of thing. Okay, so it's not, nobody's expected to come for 2 hours. If you come for 2 hours, yeah, you need to get a boyfriend or a girlfriend or something, a lawnmower. All right, let me see a question. No, that was the one I just answered. Michelle uses the Raynox with the Canon 180 and it worked decently. Okay, all right. Yeah, the Laowa would make more sense than that 180 with a piece of glass on the front of it, as far as the weight and everything. Though I've had a lot of people talking to me lately about the Laowa. What is it? The 5x, the 25 millimeter, because it's a lens that I've been pretty negative about until I had it for a prolonged period of time during the summer. And in the time that I had it and used it, I realized how much fun it was, and how useful it was, and how clear the optics were, except when you pushed it to 4 and 5 times, at which point it kind of deteriorates a little bit because of diffraction. Now, as I was excited about it and positive about it, a lot of you guys are less thrilled about it than you were. I get a lot of pictures sent to me and comments that, why is my Laowa image soft compared to a 200 millimeter lens with a 5x objective on it? And it's the same reason I've always given, is that a camera lens, when it's pushed to give you 5 times magnification, the only way that it can do that is by creating more space between the lens and the sensor. And when you do that, I beg your pardon, between the aperture and the sensor. When you do that, you're pushing the aperture further away from the sensor. And the further away it gets, the smaller it looks. And seeing as looks are everything in photography, it is about what we see and how the light interacts. Then it gets pretty clear that as you start pushing out towards 5x, you're about 6 times as much, or 6 times multiple of your nominal f number. So if you set your f number at f8 and then you get to 5 times magnification, you have to multiply that 8 by 6. That's almost 50. No, it can't be. 6 8s, yeah, it is. It's 48. So you've got 48. F48 is your f number when you're shooting at 5x, if you have it set at f8. So you can crank it all the way down to 2.8. It still gets you awfully close to diffraction, but it also opens up the aperture wide enough to be problematic with the lens's aberrations. So it's not a perfect solution. It feels like it should be, but it's not. And that's why I'd always favor going with the 5x objective over a camera lens, even. And the same goes for the MPE 65 that they don't make anymore. Does that mean you can't take good pictures with it? No, absolutely not. Now, I've said this before, but our friend in the UK, Andy Murray, is using that MPE 65 on extension, so he has a triple digit f number, and his pictures have a lot of softening in them, but they're beautifully composed, artistic, lovely photographs. So take that for what it's worth. That wasn't even in answer to a question. So let me see what anybody has said. No, you're looking at the Raynox. Okay, I see. All right. Oh no, that was Fred. Yeah, the Raynox is a lens to have. It definitely is, but as using it actually as a diopter would be a secondary thing. I was going to talk about Christmas presents, and I'm going to throw in a few. these are ideas for you to get yourself for Christmas, unless you know a macro photographer. I was trying to think, what would you get a macro photographer for Christmas if you had any money? And I started thinking of things and I wrote them down. Two things that don't even cost much money that I want to tell you about because I am so excited about these, I can hardly stand it. Okay, you've got M42 tubes, right? Let's assume that everybody out there in macro world is an infinity objective user, and you have a bunch of these that you can put together for different lengths, or you use them with your finite lens, finite objective. But how often have you done this? You've put a relay lens in your system, and you've got M42s from the camera up to the lens, the relay lens. Then you've got M42s in front of it. But when you grab your adapter for the objective, you realize, hang on, I've got the wrong end. There's a male thread here, and I need a female receptacle to put the adapter in. How did it get turned around? Well, it got turned around because, of course, a Raynox has a male thread on one side and a female on the filter side. So you're going in another direction after the lens. And most of the adapters that we have in our kits for our microscope objectives are the wrong kind for once the M42 turns around. And the same can happen on the other end if you're building it in reverse. So how can you avoid this problem? Well, until very recently, the only way I could avoid it was like this, which was to take the M42 and upsize it to a common thread size, M43, which is one of the ones that, well, take my word for it. There's an adapter here, an M42 to M43, the little one on the top. And then underneath, I would just put a pair of larger step rings that would fit on the M43, because everything fits an M43. That's a very common size. So I could turn it around that way, but it took 3 pieces of metal, often more. Well, I discovered that this is something that RAF Camera has had for ages, but I've never seen on Amazon until the weekend, when I found 2 things that will change a macro photographer's kit bag when it comes to using objectives. These adapters. An M42 male to male, whoops, there we go, and an M42 female to female. These are the solution to every problem you're ever going to run into with M42s. Because if you end up with a female thread where you need a male thread, you now have a way to turn the thread around with one adapter. Likewise, obviously, if you have the male thread, you can put on the female to female, and now you've got a female thread. This is something that you've been able to buy for 52mm adapters for common Nikon sizes for ages, but I have never seen these in M42 before. So this is a good deal, and you can make somebody's Christmas fantastic with these for, I think they were $3. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were $3 a piece, $3.99 or something. Next to nothing. So happy to find them. I ordered a couple of each. Yeah, so that was good. Definitely need to get that. What else did I get this weekend? Oh, a Nikon Z9. I got 2. I got a main one and then a backup one in case something happens to the first one. I didn't get a Z9. They won't let me touch the Z9 at the camera shop. They let me look at it from this side of the counter, which is actually quite smart of them to do that when I think about it. Let's see. Now, you see, Fred asked a question and my name turned orange. I think that is because there's a way that you can entice me to answer a question by putting money in the hat, which would be great. I would accept that, because I'm not going to be able to get any of these ideas on my Christmas list. Yeah, so there you go. If you feel like it and you have an extra buck, I'll be like that guy ringing the bell at Walmart. I give him $1 if he promises to stop ringing the bell when I come back out, just for a minute, just for me to get to my car. That's not very Christmassy, is it? Sorry about that. Okay, lots of talk about TTL. Oh, ITL. I guess that's what you mean, Phil, right? Let me see. The ITL 200 with a Mitutoyo 10. Is it worth the money? Or with the Mitutoyo 5? Yeah, well, I have it and I use it with my Mitutoyos. I think it is the best. I think it is the best relay lens. I haven't tried the Mitutoyo M1 relay lens. This is the same as the Nikon relay lens from everything I've read. You know, the only other things that I've tried are either lenses I've tested, none of which stuck around, or the Raynox. The Raynox has an advantage over the ITL 200 if you use full frame. It has a larger image circle. You get better coverage with the Raynox. That is a minor issue unless you're dead against cropping, or if you're using an APS-C camera, it doesn't make any difference. I use an APS-C camera on most of my macro rigs, and I prefer the ITL 200. I just think it is sharper corner to corner. Is it worth the money? Well, it depends. If you get it from the guy that sells the factory ITL 200s that don't have a Thor Labs emblem on them and they don't have a Nikon stamp on them, they are ITL 200s as far as anybody can tell, and they have been tested. They're a couple of $100, and then I would say absolutely it would be worth it. I don't know if I would spend $500 to get a new ITL 200, a real one. I guess if I had $500 and wanted it, I would, but it seems awfully expensive for the Thor Labs one. But yeah, I think it's better. Fred, you asked, so is extension tubes, or are extension tubes better to add to a macro lens than a Raynox? I think so, but honestly, there are better lenses to use to reverse, to add extension to, or to put a diopter on. The macro lens is a very specially designed piece of glass that is really meant to be used as it is, as a macro lens. It tends to create problems either with geometric aberrations or with softening when you move the lens away from the camera, or do anything else funky with it, like try to reverse it or anything like that. All of the techniques we talk about, diopters, extension, and reversal, all are kind of designed to use with a prime normal lens, something like a 35 to 50 millimeter lens, something that's close to symmetric as well. That's when you're going to get the most magnification and the clearest picture, and you are most closely going to mimic or exceed what a macro lens can do. It is not a magic elixir that works just as well when you add it to any lens. There are some lenses that don't reverse well, don't extend well. And definitely, I would steer clear of investing any money in anything to adapt a macro lens. Honestly, I would. If you're going to adapt a macro lens, buy a good ring flash for it, or a good MF12 flash for it. something like that, something that will actually improve the performance of the lens. But if you want to use a diopter, or if you want to use an extension tube, put it on something that has a short focal length. Most of these macro lenses, we're talking about 100mm lenses. When you extend these lenses, or especially when you reverse these lenses, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't give you much magnification. So yeah, I understand that that's probably a little bit confusing, because it's a tool that's used to give magnification, but you need to think about it in the context of the already delicate tool you're putting it on. I hope that makes sense. Zirine is on sale until the 31st. I've never known it to go on sale. How much is it going for, Michelle? That's I wonder if I could turn mine back in and say it's defective after using it 500,000 times. Probably Rick wouldn't fall for that. 20% off till the end of the year. That absolutely makes that the best buy. I did not know that that was on sale. It's already the best tool. If you plan on ever getting super serious about your stacking, you're going to have it. And once you get it, it's forever. I got it, I can't remember how long ago I got it, but I still get the upgrades whenever they come out for that one price I paid. Brilliant. Let me see. Hey, Borderland, good grief! I knew I was going to forget your name because I had a question I wanted to ask you. Don't tell me though. I'll remember. I'm good about that. Until then, I'll call you Borderland. How's everything going in Blighty? Weather good this winter? Don't know. Talked to my brothers this weekend, and neither of them said anything about it. All right. You love the 25mm on a rail. Yeah. That was how I was actually looking at some pictures today that I took with it. I'll show you one. Oh no, that wasn't it. I took some of these early summer macro shots with that 25 after I got it, using it on the rail, and I kind of liked it on the rail. I think that was one. Yeah, it's when it doesn't register anything, that's usually because it was that lens. I think that was as well. Whoops, that's not a good one to show you. Anyway, what was I working on today? I was printing today. I was printing pictures. I printed this. This makes a fantastic print. In fact, I'll go get it. Hang on a second. You look at that one. I just found the Raynox. Oh dear. I think it hit the floor. So it prints up beautifully, though it not in that light, you can't see it, but yeah. I must say that I've been very happy with the Canon Pro 10. I wasn't happy with it for a long time, but getting the ICC profiles right and changing up some things with the ink, it's now making some good pictures. I was going to show you the... do you want to see some other prints? If anybody says yes, I'll go pull down a few more. I printed a lot of pictures today. Let me see. Walter has a question. In one of your videos, you said 0.1 millimeters, 100 microns is the safe step size for a 4x microscope objective. No, that doesn't sound right. That might be the depth of field, but that's not a safe step size. At 4x, I would Let me think what I would be using. Probably about 60 to 70 microns. So yeah, it would be that with a 30% overlap. That would be you'd get focus banding at 0.1 of 4x. Do you have one of these? This is another Christmas present idea. If you're feeling really, really cheap, get one of these for yourself for Christmas and use this to test for focus banding. It's the best thing. Just put your 4x on and sit this on the table and just shoot some pictures with it like that, and you'll know immediately what kind of depth you're getting. But yeah, I would go much shorter than that, Walter. I'm kind of leaning towards going shorter than I ever have before, using a larger overlap than I have, you could call it that. It's not for any particular reason other than I tried it a few times and was really, really happy with the results, seeing some unexpectedly bright, sharp pictures, difficult ones when I dropped the distance. Let me see. Yeah, Michelle, the 5x objective is probably the most startled I've ever been with a piece of equipment, including every camera I've ever picked up, every lens. When I first took a picture with Mitutoyo 5x with a Raynox, I was completely floored. I don't think I'd ever seen anything that sharp at that magnification before. It's just amazing. Amazing. Let me see. Okay, so no, you have not. You have the lens. Oh, okay, but you haven't bought the DCR, right? Okay. But you, well, I'll tell you what. You've got the Canon 100 to 400. Is that's a lens? Yeah, 100 to 400. That won't be a good lens to use a Raynox on. You want to use it at the maximum focal length that they recommend, which is for the Raynox would be about 200 millimeters. That's a 200 millimeter focal length lens that you would mount it on. You can mount it on a 300, and I've tried that. It vignettes pretty badly, but you don't want to have it mounted on a lens that's 200 millimeters in the middle of its range. You want it to be at the full extent of its range to get the sharpest pictures. There's a reason for that. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Anyway, let me see, where were we? Can you dial back a 10 to a 5 with less infinity space? No, you cannot. But you can dial a 10 back to the sharpest 5 that you will have in your kit by going with a shorter relay lens. In fact, if you go with a 100 millimeter relay lens and you use the 10x objective and use the same infinity space, you will end up at about 5 times magnification, and it will be sharper than any 5x objective that you've got. There are trade-offs to that, but as far as just the sharpness of the image goes, yeah, it's unbelievable. It's one of the best ways if you have the CFI Plan 10x objective that a lot of people get. I have one of those, the Nikon objective. That is almost as sharp as the 5x Mitutoyo when you use it with a 100 millimeter lens. So that's the way you get around it, not by changing the infinity space. The infinity space is just a gap in which the light travels in parallel rays. It's a parallel flux of light, which allows you to add components into the optical train. That's all it's for. So you could use your objective right on the relay lens or about 75 to 90 millimeters away. Beyond that, and yes, it will start to vignette. and cause other problems. But yeah, it won't change the magnification. The only thing that changes the magnification is the focal length of the relay lens. Good. So we're actually answering questions today, which is an awfully good thing. You've got those two adapters in your cart. Well, get them before they all get sold, because these are brilliant. I've never seen them before. Yes, you know, I'm going to make a plug for RAF Camera. I don't know these guys. I've never talked to them, actually. Never talked to anybody over there. Never even emailed the owner. But I had cause to look up something for somebody who had a weird camera, putting weird extension tubes on it, and needed weird adapters. And I made a list of the adapters that were needed, and I went over there and I looked, and they had every single one of them, and none of which I'd heard of before. They really do have, and it seems that every time I go over there they have more adapters. I talked about them, I think, briefly last week when I was looking for another more common adapter. But it doesn't matter. If you find a Lomo objective from Russia, they will have an adapter for it, I guarantee. And that you'll be able to put it on anything from, you know, your biggest camera lens to an M42 extension tube. So I'm recommending them more now as a primary place to go. They're expensive. They're standard adapters like this are $24 or thereabouts, but they're not aluminum. They don't get bent out of shape. They don't bend when you drop them. Well, they might. They're brass. Brass has a weird self-lubricating property, brass on brass, and most of your objectives have brass threads. I think molecules of the metal must come off, but it's a very smooth. It's just a pro way to do it. And I spend a lot of time trying to get aluminum rings apart. Like, I don't know if I'll ever get these two apart. I think I screwed them on too tight. One way you can do it is drop them on one edge on a hard surface, just on one edge. Sometimes it works. Put them in the freezer is the other one. All right. Can someone make recipes of everything you need to make an objective kit with links for what to buy for people who just want to take photos and not research? But I've done that, Michelle. What do you mean, make recipes? Like a shopping list of everything you need? I've done that. I mean, unless I'm missing the point there. Yeah, that's actually the new thing that I'm starting in January. Before the workshop, the workshop that's not going to happen in January because of logistical things with WeMacro, but I am doing offering a service where for people who don't like DIY, they don't like dealing with multiple companies, and they don't want to do any of that. I am offering a service to those people where they just pay me a price and I get everything, and I test everything, and I assemble everything, and then they come here and spend the day included in the price, and I show them everything they'll ever need to know about how to set it up, break it down, how to change lenses, and how to use it to take pictures. So it's it costs what the setup costs, which you'd have to do anyway. And I get to build relationships with the vendors and hopefully get better and better prices from them for this stuff. So it's it's something to think about if you just don't want to do it yourself. Most of us, I think most macro people, do want to do it ourselves. We get a kick out of building the system and tinkering with it all the time. I know I do anyway. Oh, you use the @ symbol and then type somebody's name to highlight it. I thought it was you gave me money. I like that version better. All right. Oh yeah, the bells. Yeah, it's like whoever thought that ringing that bell like that, like aggressively weaponizing a little bell, would make people want to give money, is like it's like the same thing that the telemarketers who sit around the table and say, well, if we call these people, let's call them 5 times a day. Yeah, that should make them want to buy our shoes. If we just keep calling them 5 times a day, eventually they'll buy them. Yeah, it's not smart. Yeah, it's you irritate me at Christmas. I'm not, I'm going to feel less inclined to be generous. Though I do. I always throw something in there. All right. Let me see. I'm just reading, chaps. Steve, you did get the Zirane. Good for you. Good for you. I know you were thinking about it earlier in the year, I think, of giving it a try. All right. Using a shorter final length relay lens will work better on some objectives. Yes. But using some objectives are better than others for using as microscope. I mean, for using as camera lenses. I mean, they're all different. I don't know of a single infinity corrected lens that is fantastic at its normal focal length relay lens that isn't also pretty darn good at half that length. I'm trying to think of any that I've ever seen or used that were that way. The Nikon 10 Fluor is one that stands out as being good at that. Yeah, don't know. I'm not sure. The thing is, there are so few microscope lenses that are stellar macro photography lenses. There are a handful of them, and then there are those that are so expensive. The what is the one that starts with Q, Kintique or Quintique or something? Things this big. It's an absolutely gorgeous piece of kit according to Robert O'Toole, but yeah, I'll never have one. What are you using for ink with the Canon? I am using third-party ink called it. Well, it's over there. Shall I go get it? I'll go get it. Oh, there, I dropped it. I am using an ink that I am absolutely thrilled with. It is Precision Colors. This is a printer. The Canon Pro 10, if you're not familiar with it, is a photography printer. It's a fairly large format, not that big. It doesn't print from rolls. The largest print it will handle is this size, which is as big as I'll ever need. But it does take 10 inks, and the ink costs $100 for a set of cartridges. So when I bought the printer, I did some research and discovered that you can actually buy this ink in quantity. And the first time I bought it, I got it in smaller bottles. But now I get it in big honking bottles, and these cost the same as 2 sets of cartridges to buy all the colors in this size. I think. Don't hold me to that. But check Precision Colors website. They sell it in a kit. It comes with the thing that resets the chip on the cartridges, because you just reuse the cartridges. The bottom line is 1/8 of the cost. This ink. 1/8 of the cost. I can get 8 sets of refills. There's one exception to that, is this CO liquid is a fixative. It goes through this really fast, so I buy an extra big bottle of that. But everything else, I mean, it just lasts forever. I printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 prints this size, all of them with a lot of color in them, and there is none of the ink is low. So these last forever, and I only buy ink about once a year now, and I have been extremely happy with it. They admit that one ink they make is not as good as the original, and that's the red. So this is Canon red. When you buy the kit from them, it has Canon red ink in it, and it costs 13 times the price of the other colors. But you know, that's what they say. So I would strongly endorse those people, and I don't even like them because they won't answer my email about how to save money on this other terrible printer, Epson printer. This thing is just awful. I have to clean it out every couple of weeks with a syringe and a hose, after which it never works properly. Thank you, Susan. That was very kind of you. And I sent you an email, Susan. That's the second email I sent this week. I need to see if you responded. I will. All right. So where was I? I was going on about the ink. Blair, you asking me about the Lomo 3.7 or what? Or asking somebody else? No, the Lomos do use RMS. Yeah, they do. They do. RMS is becoming an exotic thread size, because I don't have anything that's RMS except that 4X and the Lomos. But yeah. Any more information for in-person training for macro? Well, the workshop at the beginning of the year, I cannot get enough equipment together at such short notice. I have tried everything I could think of, and I've decided that January it's not gonna work. I'm gonna plan it for a little later so that we can wait till spring's here and the bugs are out, and then we will do a session here. But I do private sessions all year long. I mean, anybody who wants to have a session to learn anything that I teach, yeah, I do those privately. Whether for people who are local, then we get together and we do whatever it is you need to do in the studio or outside. Most of it we do remotely, and yeah, that's always available. You just have to get in touch with me. I'm not always taking new students when I'm full up. When I have like 4 people I'm helping, that's all I can do and make videos. So yeah, if you're looking for one-on-one tutorial type stuff or mentoring, yeah, by all means, let me know. Chris, DIY or die? Yes or no, depending. I broke a die. I invented something this weekend, and it works really well. That's over there. But in the process of doing it, I had to drill some holes in metal, and I broke a tap. Is it a tap that screws in to make the female threads? Or is that a die? Whichever one it was, I snapped it off. ND Canon shooter purchased Zerine and Helicon last year. Well, tell me, ND, which of them are you using more frequently or more regularly? I mean, I have them both as well, and I've had them both for a long time. Most people find a workflow that centers around one or the other. What are you doing? What are you using them both for? Are you screening with... a lot of people talk about screening with Helicon and then stacking the good ones in Zerine. That to me makes no sense at all. I can usually tell when a picture's going to stack well, and I just stack it. I don't see why I want to do it twice. But what are you using them for? And that would be interesting. Let me see. Yeah, well, making the photographs and not making the rigs is what I think a lot of people do like, and this kind of photography puts people off if they have to, when they learn that a lot of it is that there isn't stuff that you can buy. If you want something, you have to really make it a lot of the time. So yeah, that puts people off. It's a shame. It's one of the things that appeals to me. That would be a great thing to do, and maybe one day I'll do it, is have a workshop that is a macro DIY workshop where we just work on projects and learn skills and things in the workshop, because it is fun. I mean, it really is. The trouble is I'm no good at it, so I'd be teaching you all the wrong things. I can make stuff for myself, but I'd never suggest anybody use power tools the way I do. I'm sure there's a law against it. Let me see. James, you've been away for a few weeks. Oh, did I get a chance to try the Wii Macro? Well, yes. I've been using it ever since it arrived. Yeah, I've done 4 videos on it now. Very happy with it. There's been a problem with the vertical rig, and I'll touch on this. Maybe I shouldn't, but I will. There is a problem, and it could be as simple as an adapter that isn't fitting right, that's allowing some vibration up at the camera. But I am getting some sympathetic vibration when I try using the vertical rig at high speed. So I have stopped doing that zooming through the shots thing, unless I'm just trying to survey something. But to use it at 20 times magnification, I really wonder if it shouldn't be bolted to a wall or somehow anchored. And I'm thinking about doing that. I'm thinking about just basically putting a big stud into one of the wall bits of wood that hold the wall up, and just fix it to that. That will stop most of that vibration, I think. Maybe that's overkill. It really only is when I'm using the thing super fast. But yeah, I really love it. And I'll tell you, for the price, if I was at the beginning of my career doing this, and I had the choice between the Wii Macro and the stack shot at the prices that they're currently going for, even with the Bluetooth and everything, I would go with the Wii Macro. It just makes sense. You could buy 3 of them anyway, and I think that they are also on sale right now, a couple of $100. Is it? I think so. Either way, it's still a lot cheaper than some of the alternatives. I overheard a conversation last week about the XKYGJGZZ rails, and I didn't read the final comments. somebody was defending it and somebody was slamming it, but I wanted to read that, and then it disappeared. But those rails, I've used several of them, and the precision ones are really nice. I mean, they really are. There's no doubt about it. But anytime you have a 400 step motor on a good solid industrial rail, you're going to have a head start on having a good stacking device. They just seem awfully expensive for used motors. I came across at the thrift store of all places 4 400 stepper motors, which was a find. I mean, they're hard to find. They're very precise and very quiet, and you can even micro step them at 1/32 steps. When they're already doing 400 steps, you're talking about tiny increments. In fact, probably much lower than the tolerances of the rail. But I will build something with them. I've already made one gadget with them that works. All right, let me see. Oh, the ice melted and it's just warm water. Nasty. All right, let me see. Questions. The conical hood showed last week. Yeah, the printed one. That's the one that Bud Parrott made, and you'll be seeing him on Thursday if you come. Let me go grab it. So I have 2 of these. So the original one that I made out of a funnel and a piece of PVC, and yeah, that was my one. It falls off all the time. Not very good, but free. And then this is what Bud made, and it is 3D printed. I can't remember what he said it was made of. You just put a little bit of tape on the inside, and it is a nice smooth fit, and it goes all the way to the end. It gives 17 or 18, I think it is, millimeters from the end of the objective to the hole at the end, which is teeny tiny, but the perfect size. That is exactly enough to get the hood right over the specimen. It basically blocks all off-axis light, can't get in because of the tiny hole and where it's positioned. And the question is, does it improve my contrast? And it does, but it also introduces some problems with lighting. So I'm kind of trying to decide what to do. I think that possibly opening up the hole a little bit might help, or getting it, but basically that would be the same as having a shallower angle. But it does appear at 20x to be effective. It doesn't appear to do much of anything at 10x, and at 5x it just gets in the way. But we know that. I mean, this is a device that I only wanted to use. This one was designed to use with the 20x objective. The reason for that is the numeric aperture on a 20 objective is 0.55. It has a huge, the end of the objective lets light in from everywhere. That's why this, I think, is effective in limiting the amount of internal reflection and haze that you see. You put that on a 5x objective, and which has a 0.15 NA. It has a pencil of light that gets in, and it's just going to go through the hole, but there isn't any off-axis light to worry about, so it doesn't do anything but get in the way. Did that make any sense? I feel like I described that rather poorly. It's like trying to describe a spiral staircase without doing that. Try it. Question: for the price, value, usefulness, which would you recommend buying first, WeMacro or Zerine? Wow, what a good question. Well, Zerine would be of no use unless you had a rail. So if the WeMacro is your first rail, then absolutely you need the rail first. Get the rail and then stack with Photoshop until you go mad, and then get Helicon or Zerine. There's no point getting Zerine if you're just hand stacking. I mean, you'd be better off. Well, that's not fair. I used Zerine for many years just with a manual rail. But really, if you're talking about high magnification stuff, I would say absolutely get the hardware first, and then get the software to make the most of the hardware after that. If anybody disagrees with that, tell me, and I'd love to hear your argument. I asked somebody a question, was their answer, hey Amy5, when using a reversed enlarger lens on a bellows, is there a table to look up the magnification? Yes, there isn't, or well, there are calculators everywhere, but I suggest you do the following. It is much more helpful, and it will stick in your head forever. Go to Harbor Freight and buy a ruler. I recommend a precision ruler like this. If you have a friend with a laser cutter, you can also buy just a big metal ruler and cut a piece of it. Put this on your macro stage and focus with your EL Nikkor in reverse on the ruler at the minimum focus distance, which is as close as you can get it before it goes out of focus. And simply start moving the lens back, and as you do, keep measuring bring the ruler back into focus, and what you need to do is find out where on your bellows you are when it is showing. If you're using APS-C, it'll show a full 24 millimeters at 1:1. It'll only show 12 millimeters at 2:1, and so on. And you just keep doing that. You'll find it gets all the way down to 4 millimeters, 4 actual millimeter spaces, which is 6x, which is pretty amazing from that lens. And each time you find the right distance, put a little paper sticker. I use address labels that I cut at an angle so they make tiny pointers, and I just put them on there. That was years ago, they've fallen off, but that way, going through that exercise, you'll see and feel and know what is exactly 2x, 3x, 4x, and you'll put the marks on there, and you'll never look at them again. But doing that will convince you, how you set it up. After a while, you'll start to know. You'll just look through the lens and you'll know roughly where you are. But that's the way I would do it, really. If you want a chart, make one using a calculator. But remember that the calculators are not accurate. They are just estimates. If you want an accurate, because they use things like thin lens formulas, which are theoretical, they're not actual lenses. So if you really want to know exactly what is 2x, 3x, 4x on your lens, do it with a ruler and mark it on your bellows, and you'll be glad you did. Amy, your 25 to 52 millimeter adapter arrived today. Oh, fantastic. Oh, for your 10x, for your CFI. Excellent. Let me know how that goes. Big thumbs up for Precision Color. You had the Pixma Pro 10. Well, that's the same thing I've got, I think. Died with board failure. Yeah, well, I mean, they do die. This printer was basically free. They had them on sale with a rebate. I mean, it was like $50 for the printer, new. And I realized as soon as I bought it that it was just so that I would start buying the ink. And I did buy 2 sets of the ink because I have, I'll mention that, I have 2 sets of cartridges. Well, the other one's over there, I'm not going to go get it. I have 2 sets of Canon cartridges. They're the ones that come in the full set. What I do is I have one full all the time. So one of them is filled up. I use a scale to weigh them so that I have exactly 32.5 grams of ink in them, which is full. And then whenever a color goes out, just one color, I swap them out with fresh recharged refills that have the chip reset in them. That means I never ever run the risk of having a dry nozzle that will ruin one of these printers. So they always have ink in the cartridges, and I don't mind about taking them out early because I'm just replacing them with my own cartridges, and that ink is just going to be added to the refill. So it's a great way of doing it. It means you do have to replace the ink a little bit more often, but I mean, it's just it takes a few minutes. I should do a video of it to show you how you do it. There's only a few steps, but strongly recommended. Strongly. Well, Steve, you've already left, but thanks for coming. Holy mackerel! Is it really 9:20? I cannot believe I kept talking so long. Somebody should have stopped me. Said, hey, you've gone too long. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it, seeing as I can't believe the time went by that fast. I thought I still had half an hour. I'm going to answer the rest of these questions, by the way, but feel free, if you've got stuff to go to head on. Oh, Mr. Red-Eyed Loon's already gone to bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning over there. Blimey. All right, let me see. I already answered Blair's question. ND Cannon Shooter, hadn't purchased either of them yet. Good. Good. Yeah, I would... yeah, the research, depending on how you do the research, will make a use case for either. But I think at the end of the day, if you go with Helicon because you think you'll never take photographs good enough to require you to be able to do the things that Zerine can do, then you never will. That's what I firmly believe the difference is. It's like, well, you think of a million examples of things that you might skimp on to save some. I don't know what you save because it's actually Zerine is cheaper. But yeah, time maybe if you're concerned about Zerine being slower. But the fact of the matter is that until Helicon ups their retouching game, these are 2 different products, and one of them would be a full-featured Pro software package. The other one isn't. I mean, it needs to be. It really should be. It would be the best thing for everybody if they did that. If they just went ahead and bit the bullet and did the research and wrote the program. But I'm not going to go into why that is because I'm sure you're all sick of it. Let me see if there's any other questions. Yeah, try them both and see which one's better. But remember that a lot of the features that make Zerine a better stacker won't be something you necessarily use right away. Things like slabbing or batching. You might, but then again, you might not, and you might never use them. In which case, you know, it wouldn't have made any difference. All right, Michelle, you can do stacks in Photoshop as long as it's like 4 pictures. I think the most I ever did was 30, and my computer was smoking. Yeah, it's not very good. It also doesn't use a very smart algorithm, so it's terrible for making artifact. All right. Fred needs a new focus rail. You bought a cheap one and it came with no increments numbers. Yeah, unfortunately, the cheap ones, I mean the really cheap ones, are rubbish, total rubbish. Here's the thing: if you're still here, Fred, let me just make a pitch to you about this, and it's not really a pitch because I'm not with any of these companies. A really good macro rail, a manual macro rail, will cost you north of $100, which is not chump change, but one that is smooth enough and accurate enough that you could, with patience and practice, use it for some decent magnification. A wee macro, which will stack at 1 micron intervals, is the price of what, 2 of those rails, or is it 3 of those rails? Is it $200 or $300? It's either 2 of those rails or 3, and it is in a totally different league. It's so much easier to use and so much better. It takes all of the tedium and the boredom out of it. It seems to me like it's a no-brainer. I could never have made that argument to you about the stack shot. I would never have said, well, look, if you just, it's just like buying 9 macro rails. What's the difference? Yeah, it doesn't hold water at that number. So yeah, we macros changed the game, and I would seriously think about getting one, or build one, make one yourself. Yeah, we won't get into that right now, or I'll start going off on tangents. Alrighty, let me see. The stack shot can also be used on custom setups and 3-axis time-lapse rails. Well, the precision difference is not real. Well, the precision difference is real in that the stack shot has to be in precision mode to deliver on that precision promise, but neither of them make that much difference at that scale. I mean, it's not a visible problem. It's just that the motor is not performing, or the driver is not performing the way you think it is. But if you have the macro rail, the stack shot that is part of that 3x program, that 3x device, that's a different thing than I'm talking about. I'm talking about the old stack shot, the regular stack shot that comes with the old square controller, not the 3-axis one, because I think they use a different driver. I don't know that for a fact, but anyway, I'll research that before next time. Let me see. I think everybody's gone home. Fred wants you to hit like for Allan, and I think that would be lovely if you do that. Can I do that? Where is it? I don't have a like button. No, I'm not allowed to like myself. There's one more question. We macro rail cost $510. Holy cow. Oh, you should move to America then. Obviously. That's terrible. I had no idea. The Nisi 200, yes, that is a big step up. It's a lot better than the old one. Yeah, but it's so expensive. It's almost the price of a Wii macro. All right, guys, listen. The time has come for me to call it, and I didn't get to everybody, and I'm sorry about that. yeah, that's good though. It's so many of you asking so many things that I didn't get to everybody. I love that. That means we need to add another one, right? Let's see what happens on Thursday. Bud, if you're still here, I'll see you tomorrow sometime. I hope. We got a hurricane or something coming here tomorrow. I'll try to get out before that. Yeah, there's nothing else I haven't answered, so I'm just going to say good night then, and I will go and put these gadgety things, the things we talked about, and actually I'm going to put all the other. This was a poorly disguised ploy to put some interesting stuff here so that you'd go to Amazon, look at it, and then buy your Christmas presents when you were there. Because if you do that, then yeah, I'd make some dollars that way, possibly. So I'll do it anyway. I'll put some stuff in there because somebody else needs to get the DJI Osmo Pocket 2 so that you can show me how to use mine. It's complicated. All right, guys, I will see you on Thursday at 8 o'clock Central Time from Douglasville, Georgia. Until then, have a great evening. Thanks for coming and sticking around. Good night.